Welcome everybody. We are now on the fourth session of this new topic of Nav Tatva. We'll start with the prayers and then get right into the subject matter for today. Namo Arihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Ujjayanam, Namo Loe Sabba Sahunam. Eso Panchanamukaro Sabba Pavapanasano Manglanancha Sabvesim Padmam Havai Mangalam. Namo Arihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Ujjayanam, Namo Loe Sabba Sahunam. Eso Panchanamukaro Sabba Pavapanasano Manglanancha Sabvesim Padmam Havai Mangalam. Namo Arihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Ujjayanam, Namo Loe Sabba Sahunam. Eso Panchanamukaro Sabba Pavapanasano Manglanancha Sabvesim Padmam Havai Mangalam. Veera Sarvasura Surendra Mahito Virambudha Sansrita Virena Bhiyata Swakarma Nichayo Viraya Nityam Nama. Viratirthamidam Prautamatulam Virashigoram Tapo Vire Sri Truti Kirtikanti Nichaya Sri Virabhadram Disa Kamathe Taranendracha Sochitam Karma Kurvati Prabhustulya Manovrutti Parshanath Sri Estuvaha Anguthe Amrutavase Lapti Tana Bandar Sri Guru Gautam Samariye Manvanchita Padadatar. Before I start sharing the slides, most of which are slides that you've seen, let me just outline what we will try and discuss today. We are still on the topic of Jeev, the first Tattva that we started discussing out of the 9 Tattvas. We'll spend this week and possibly the next lesson on this topic as well, and then we will go on to the next subject matter. I'm spending a lot more time on this particular topic because we really need to get the fundamental understanding of what we are talking about, because this is obviously the most important aspect of learning in Nav Tatva. Even though there is a lot of revision, what I want to do is explore some other aspects of Jeev and the Nav Tattva or 9 Tattvas towards the end, and expand on that topic further in the next class. Let me start with the slides. So learning about Nav Tattva is an exercise in learning about ourselves, who we truly are, according to the teachings of our Tirthankar Arihant Paramatmas and our Nirgranth Guru Bhagwans and our Shastras. Learning about Nav Tattva is the basis on which the spiritual development of the soul rests. I don't know if any of you remember some of the words that we use during the Savansari Pratikraman in the recitation of the Atichar in Gujarati. in there is a particular section which is asking for forgiveness for certain sins or indiscretions in reference to the particular duty of a Shravak to hold on to the essential truths of dharma, of religion, and it refers to the indiscretions or lack of conviction in the basic essential beliefs that form the basis of our spiritual progress. So just a couple of lines there from memory, what I can recite or tell you about is that Vitrag, Arihant, Vitrag, Arihant Kevli Isya Gun Bhani Na Manya Na Pujya. Then there is a reference to the Nav Tattvas, Jeev Jivadi, वगैरह नौ तत्वों सदैया नहीं, जीव जीवादि वगैरह तत्वों सदैया नहीं, meaning the nine tattvas and understanding and convincing and reflecting on those now nine tattvas on a daily basis and holding on to those beliefs. If one sort of misses the mark and forgets that or gets confused about that, that in itself is considered to be something to be remembered as an indiscretion or something that is taking us away from the path of spiritual progress. So everything that we are learning with the Nav Tattva is fundamental and extremely important, and reference to this keeps on coming back in everything else that we do as well. Tat were, that meaning the universe, lok and alok, and twa means its nature or its root or what it is all about. The nine tattvas, again, to remind ourselves, Jeev, Ajeev, Punya, Pap, Ashrav, Samvar, Nirjara, Bandh, and Moksha. Again, this particular depiction is quite commonly used, and you'll see the same picture in a lot of other books as well. And it depicts the Nav Tattva in pictorial form, and it makes it very easy to understand. Again, these three statements about the six positions or Samyaktuna Shatsthan, the soul is or the soul exists. The soul is the doer of its karma. The soul is the one who experiences the fruits of these karmas, and as a result moves from life after life in the four gatis. And again, the soul by its effort can ultimately destroy all these karmas and become liberated from this cycle of birth and death and achieve moksha. So from one point of view, that is the soul. That which has life is the soul. That which has the attribute of pran is soul or jeev. And then we discuss dravya pran and bhav pran. Bhav pran, the essential qualities of the soul itself, gnan, darshan, charitra, virya. and Pyog. These are the qualities, virtues of the soul. Dravya Pran, 10 prans, including the 5 senses. So from the absolute point of view, the soul is that which has the qualities of Gnan, knowledge, Darshan, faith, understanding, Charitra, complete detachment from anything, for everything that is not of itself. Virya is power, and strength in staying focused and within itself. And Upyog is the exercise of all these powers. It is there for the doer of all these virtues and the one who enjoys these virtues. The 10 Dravya Prans, the 5 senses, we all know them, the 3 Bals of Yoga, Man Bal, Vachan Bal, Kai Bal, Swasoswas, the ability to breathe, and Ayushya, meaning the duration for which the soul stays entrapped in a particular life. The prans are in relation to the soul's existence in sansar. When in moksha, the soul is devoid of any attachment to karmas and therefore is existing in its pure form without the body, without any body. Gnan, Darshan, Charitra, Tap, Virya, and Upyog, these are the essential qualities of the Jeev, is Upyog, that can be translated as consciousness. And last week, we looked at this particular concept or this particular knowledge of Paryapti for the soul to exist and function as a sansari Jeev, meaning the body that it occupies, it needs the power of the instruments that would make this happen. This power instruments are Paryapti. There are 6 of those. Ahar, the ability to use the appropriate material to feed the body and the soul that the soul has begun to form. Sharir, the ability to form the body that the soul occupies for that particular life. Indriya is the ability to create the senses. If it is a one-sensed life form that the soul currently is born as, then there will only be one sense, and so on. So the ability to create those senses, all of us have, as soon as we came into our mother's womb, as soon as the soul came into the mother's womb, it started generating the body and ensuring that all these things were created and designed. Okay. Swasoswas, the ability to use the appropriate pudgal to help it breathe. Pasha, the ability to use the pudgal to communicate with sound with others. And Man, the ability to use the appropriate pudgal for thoughts. So these are the Paryaptis. Today you all probably received the about 4 sheets in Gujarati. It's actually one sheet, but it has 4 different pages, and towards the end, we'll discuss those. Those are in Gujarati. I haven't translated them in detail, but they tabulate a lot of this, and it makes it very easy to understand. If there are many of you who find it very difficult to understand any of what I've sent, then please raise your hands and we will explore those things further later today. The types of jeeves from different perspectives. So the jeev or soul, how can it be divided and how can it be understood with a bit more detail and depth. So, as is common in all the learning in Jain Dharma, we are looking at things from different perspectives. And here, Jeev or the soul, Sansari Jeev, is looked at from a different perspective. So, it can be divided or it can be understood as just one type, meaning ek prakare chetna lakshan thi. So by virtue of being alive, all souls are equal in that respect, that all living souls in whatever form are alive. So by virtue of consciousness that unites us all. So understanding it in this way is actually very useful and important, because then this concept of us as being the soul separate from all that is non-life, so us being life and all that is non-life, and identifying ourselves with ourselves is the ultimate goal of spirituality. Jeev ek prakare meaning chetna lakshan thi. So all life has the one particular quality of consciousness. If you look at it from two different perspectives, then there are two types of jeev: those which move, those which are still, tras and sthavar. The term tras and sthavar are jeevs which have the ability to move of their own volition. So, for example, the leaves of a tree, the fruits on a tree, the branches, etc., will move with the wind, but they are not moving of their own volition. If you look at wind, it's moving from one place to other because of the changes in the pressure, and it is not something that has the ability to move by itself. If you look at an ant, the ant has the ability to move by itself. All other two-sensed, three-sensed, four-sensed, and five-sensed life forms have the ability to initiate movement. So all life can be divided into two separate sections: that which is tras, meaning which has the ability to move of its own volition, and sthavar, which by nature is still unless moved by an external force. If you want to divide all sansari life in three different ways, then we have by the gender, Purush Ved, Stri Ved, and Napunsak Ved. So Jain Dharma teaches us, recognizes three genders: male, female, and in between hermaphrodite, Napunsak. If you look at it from four different aspects, then there are the four gatis: Dev Gati, those souls which exist in Devlok as Devs; Manushya Gati, all human beings, all souls who exist as human beings; Tiryanch Gati, meaning all souls who exist in all other life which is not Dev or Manushya or Narak, and that includes everybody from one sense to five sensed subhuman life forms. And finally, Naragati, or all souls which exist in Narak. So all jeev, or all souls, can be divided into 4 different categories according to which gati they are in that particular life residing. You can divide souls in 5 different ways according to the number of senses that the life possesses. So 1 sense, 2 sense, 3 sense, 4 sense, and 5 sense. Ekindriya, Beindriya, Teindriya, Chaurindriya, and Panchindriya. And you can also divide it in 6 different ways, meaning Prithvikai, so life within the earth matter. So Jainism describes Prithvikai as a life form. So rocks, mud, precious metal by itself is a life form. Apkai, fluid, water, all the different kinds of life that have a fluid character is again a one-sensed life form. Teukai, that which has the quality of light or heat, like fire, electricity, all that one-sensed life form is Teukai. Vaukai, one-sensed life form as air, wind, and there are many different types of this. So we are not going to be discussing Jiv Vichar in detail, but the description of all these different places where Prithvikai, Apkai, Teukai, and Vaukai exist and in what form would be given in Jiv Vichar. And then Vanaspati Vanaspati is all kinds of plant matter, again one sensed life form. So here in 6 different divisions, the first 5 are all one-sensed life forms, and the 6th category is Traskai, meaning more than one sense with the ability to move. So you can look at all life in these 6 different categories, and again considering where life exists and in what different ways this sort of divisions, this sort of understanding makes it clear to us of all the areas where life exists. The second part in this particular lesson, by the way, this book is actually, the pages of this book are meant for standard teaching in Pathsalas. So this was written for Pathsalas by Param Pujya Panyas, who was then an Acharya called Kala Purna. Vijayji Maharaj Sahib. He wrote this when he was a Gani or a Panyas, and this book was probably first published in Vikram Samvat 2026. So probably about 50, 60 years ago. And it's a very well illustrated, very compact, nice book, but it's in Gujarati. I don't think you can actually go and buy this book because this was published then, 1,000 copies. I have no idea whether more copies were ever published subsequently, but this book was given to me by somebody who had been hoarding it for his life and passed it on. Okay. The next chapter, number 2, in this particular part is Prana. Pran is defined here as Jivanu Sadhan, and as we said, the power that allows the life to exist in that particular, the soul to exist in that particular life. And there is Dravya Pran and Bhav Pran. Dravya Pran is that which is necessary for all sansari jeev. So all of us who exist in this cycle of life and death, sansar, would need Dravya Pran. And Bhav Pran is the ultimate pure virtues of the soul, and they exist, the Bhav Prans exist in total and in complete clarity and purity in those jeeves which are currently residing in moksha. Okay, Siddh na Jivo. So the 10 Dravya Prans that we mentioned was the 5 Indriyas, sense of touch, smell, taste, vision, and hearing. The 3 Bals, Yog, the ability to think, the ability to speak, and the ability to use your body. The ability to breathe, swasoswas, and the 10th Pran, Ayushya, the duration for which the soul will remain in that particular life. And the Bhav Pran, Darshan, Gnan, Charitra, Virya, and one could include Upyog here as well. Now, briefly, what is described here is another way of classifying life. And it introduces a new term, which again we need to get familiar with. The terms are Sukshma and Badar. Sukshma is defined as what cannot be seen by the naked eye or even by virtue of any instruments, and it is something that could only be discerned with superior extrasensory knowledge. And Sukshma is also that which cannot be divided by any kind of instrument. So you can't chop and make it smaller. And it can also be understood as something that is a body which is occupied by several or a large number of souls together. So it is one body, many souls. That is Sukshma. One-sensed life forms exist in these two forms. Sukshma, meaning that which is invisible to the eye or any instruments, that which cannot be divided, and it is extremely small, minuscule, subatomic. So single-sensed life is divided into two varieties, one Sukshma and Badar. Beindriya, two-sensed life forms are all Badar, meaning they are visible with the eye. If you crush or cut them, then they get separated. So basically, there is a visible body there. And that may be either a single life or a group of lives, but they would all be visible. Bijal, I'll come to your question in a minute. Hold on to your question. Let's finish this. Yeah. Then we got 3 sense life forms, which are again Badar, 4 sense life forms, which are again Badar. And in 5 sense life forms, again, there are 2 divisions. One is Sangni, so 5 sensed with a mind, and Asangni means 5 sensed without the ability of thought. So without a mind, that is called Asangni. So in total, we got these 7 divisions: 1 sense life forms, Sukshma and Badar; 2 sense life forms, Badar; 3 sense life forms, Badar; 4 sense life forms, Badar; 5 sense life forms, either Sangni with a mind, ability to think, or Asangni without a mind. So you can have 5 sense life forms without the ability to think. So in total, there are 7 such divisions. And again, they are divided or multiplied by 2. Out of those 7, if there are 7 which are Paryapt, so when we were looking at Paryapti earlier, we said that no Jeev dies without forming the Ahar, Sarir and Indriya Paryapti, but it may not complete everything else. And a lot of Jeeves may be born in a particular yoni or a particular place for a very brief moment and then lose their lives without actually ever coming to full maturation. So, for example, the process of life would start, the soul would begin to consume or create the ability to feed itself, form a body, and then start forming the sense, 1 sense, 2 sense, 3 sense, and may finish developing those, but their life may then end at that point and may not go on further. So those are then called aparyapt. So all life is then divided into either paryapt or aparyapt. So in total, this particular division talks about 14 different ways or 14 different uh, categories of life. પર્યાપ્ત is defined as જે જીવો પોતાના યોગ્ય પર્યાપ્તિઓ પૂરી કરીને મરે છે તે. So if they finish developing all those paryaptis, ahar, sarir, indriya, swasoswas, pasha and man, and died after having developed fully with all those abilities, then they are called paryapt. But if they die before completing that full development, then they are called aparyapt. So that exists in all life forms, and therefore we got this 7 divisions here multiplied by 2, so that means 14 different divisions. Okay. Here is a simple chart which describes the concept of paryapti again in a bit more detail. Again, to go back, ahar paryapti, sarir paryapti, indriya paryapti, swasoswas paryapti, bhasha paryapti, and man paryapti. What kind of life form has how many paryaptis? So, for example, one sensed life form has four paryaptis. Four paryaptis means the ability to feed, sarir, that they have a body, the ability to form the body, indriya, that the ability to form the sense and the power to have that sense, and swasoswas, the ability to breathe. Two sensed life forms have, in addition to these four, the ability to communicate bhasha. So say they were some kind of a language. Three sense life form again have the paryapti of bhasha. Four sense life forms again have the ability of using Pudgal for communicating of bhasha. And asangni panchendriya would again, because they lack the mind, still have those first five paryaptis. And sangni panchendriya would in addition have the sixth paryapti of man. And there is a note here at the end which says, Koi pan jeev ahar sarir and indriya આ ત્રણ પર્યાપ્તિઓ પૂરી કર્યા વિના મરે નહીં. But there are lots of life, so a lot of our lives who could have started, so we could have been born as a human being, just completed the process to this point, ahar, sarir, and indriya, and then the life would end at that point. And the same thing can happen with any other one sensed, two sensed, three sensed, four sensed, five sensed life forms. So the duration of that life is, from what I've just described, extremely short. On this final page here, I will leave you to look at it. Let me know if there are words that you don't understand, but this summarizes the life type, that is Jeev, one sense, two sense, three sensed, four sensed without the mind, and four sensed, five sensed without the mind, and five sensed with the mind. And then it talks about the number of senses that they have. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then with five senses, two different categories. Pran, the number of prans that they have. So start with a minimum of 4 prans. Sparsendriya, meaning the sense of touch in one sense life forms. Kai bird, meaning the ability to use the body. Swasoswas, the ability to breathe. And Ayushya, the duration for which that life will exist, that soul will exist in that particular life. Then you got two sensed life forms, sense of touch and sense of taste. And the last column, the fourth column here in this page, is mentioning the number of paryaptis that that soul would have. So I will leave you to reflect on this, hold on to this, that you've been sent this particular charts, and try and look at that at some stage to hopefully consolidate this knowledge. And then we'll start with the questions now. And there is one other area that I want to explore, which is about He, Gnei, and Upadei. That is, again, a way of looking at the 9 tattvas. And we'll come to that at the end. Now I'm going to stop sharing and we'll go to the questions. Bijal, you had raised your hand. gone.
Pranam Jai Jinendra.
Pranam, Teja.
I have a couple of questions. First, when you talk about aparyapti, is that when, so would that happen in this life or the next life, or is it as soon as the soul departs the body in this life and before it starts the next life?
It is in relation to the life that has begun. Meaning,
Okay, so once I die in this form and I'm about to begin the next one. So if they don't achieve all the 7 things, does it just then move on to the next life?
yeah,
And then it has to do the same thing and achieve all those 7 things in
absolutely.
order to.
So whichever life this soul is born into, whichever form, to be able to live through that life and function in that particular life in this for the duration for which it is destined to spend its life in that particular yoni, in that particular uh, life form, it will complete whatever it needs to exist in that life for that duration. However, it may not be able to complete all the paryaptis that are necessary to exist in that particular life form. And this is what this is referring to. Then it is classified as aparyapt. But even there, what is clearly mentioned here is that no life, કોઈ પણ જીવ આહાર, શરીર અને ઇન્દ્રિય આ ત્રણ પર્યાપ્તિઓ પૂરી કર્યા વિના મરે નહીં. So that means the duration of that soul's existence in that particular life would go as far as finishing the creation of these 3 powers, ahar, sarir, and indriya, and then move on, because that is the duration of its life in that. But if it completes all the basic essential paryaptis, then it will live through that particular ayushya that is it is destined to in that particular life form.
And
Um,
if it falls short, is it just because of the karma?
yes. And Bharat Bhai may be able to enlighten us. There are different kinds of karma which are described with respect to paryapt and aparyapt. I don't know, Bharat Bhai, if you or anybody else you want to enlighten us on that.
Jai Jayendra, Ajitbhai.
Yeah.
I think, as you said about the paryaptis, I mean that will also depend on your ayushya and,
Yeah.
and the lifespan that you're bound.
Yeah.
Also, it is important to remember that all the 6 paryaptis are done within an antamurat. That is the maximum time it can take for all the paryaptis is less than 48 minutes. In fact, if it is Jaganya, it is only a matter of a few seconds. If it is Madhya, it is just more than that, and maximum, within 48 minutes.
Yeah. So
and
this
that,
soul, yeah.
And that depends on your Ayusha karma.
So if, say, within 48 minutes you completed all the powers, all the paryaptis for existence in that particular life, then you are a fully formed life form for that particular yoni. And as Bharatbhai is saying, the maximum time it can take is Antarmurat, but it can be much shorter than that. So within a very short time, everything would be complete. And then if your duration of your life, your Ayushya karma, is destined to be, say, if we are looking at, say, a human being, is 3 months, then the fetus dies within those 3 months. 6 months, 9 months, stillborn babies, that was the duration of their lifespan. However, as far as Ayushya karma is concerned, there are other things that can shorten the duration of one's preformed or pre-arranged Ayushya karma. So, and that is a different topic. But say, for example, if I'm born with a Ayushya karma of 100 years, so if somebody looks at our hands and says, oh, you've got a long lifeline, that means you're going to live 100 years, but there's no guarantee that that will actually transpire. There are many different interventions that can shorten that particular life duration, but the amount of karma that was accumulated for that duration does get spent, but it can get spent in a shorter time. That is what that means.
Even after the band.
Yes, so Ayushya karma can be shortened. So except for great people, so Tirthankar Paramatma's Ayushya karma doesn't get shortened no matter what. So that's called soap karma. So if આપણા બધાનું આયુષ્ય છે એને સોપ કર્મ લાગી શકે, meaning that events can shorten the lifespan even if we've come with an Ayushya karma of 100 years. At the age of 60, if I have a massive accident, then the other 40 years of my Ayushya karma that were remaining would get spent in those last few moments of my life. So all that Ayushya karma would be quickly dissipated and disappear in a very short time.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that it was flexible.
Well, for us, it's flexible. For others, for the great beings, nothing changes. So those souls which are going to moksha in that particular life, Baraban Bharatbhai, with those who are destined to go to moksha in that life, nothing changes there. Correct?
In fact, all 63 Shalaka
Shalaka Purush,
Purush, their lives, I mean, their lifespan doesn't change. It's yeah.
So all Chakravatis, Bardev, Vasudev, Prativasudev, and Tirthankar Paramatmas.
Okay. And so one more thing. So we talked about the Asankhya Jeev in one body, like water, and then we've got like us who have one soul in one body. So our cells are living, right? So if, for example, our organ is removed or blood is removed, it's still alive, isn't it, so to speak? But
Now,
it lives without the soul until it's moved into.
I'm not sure how to actually answer this because I'm not very clear exactly on this particular topic. So we have got, I mean, we shouldn't forget that we got lots of bacteria living in our guts. We got lots of bacteria living in our noses and other different access points in our body, and lots of bacteria living on our skin. So in that respect, that's a different question from what you're asking. Though we are a single soul in the single body, there are others which are dependent or living with us. But in terms of the organs and the cells, and what we see in terms of, say, the division of cells, how does one classify that particular aspect of biology and what kind of processes are taking place in that? I am not very clear on that. It's something that we need to learn. Unless Bharatbhai or anybody else has an answer, if you explored this elsewhere before, please enlighten us. In relation to modern science, creating organs in the laboratory with pluripotent stem cells, for example. Bharatbhai?
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
So Bijal is asking that we are one soul in one body, as opposed to, say, Anantkai. I'm making the point that there are other organisms living within us, but her
Whether
question.
it's my device, I'm not sure, but your voice seems to be breaking up.
Sorry, what Bijal is asking is that,
Yeah.
is that clearer?
Yeah. I mean, your voice is clear now.
Yeah. So she's asking that we are one soul in one body. What happens to the organs that are removed and then transplanted? And the notion that the organ is alive.
Sorry, your voice has been breaking up. I'm not sure whether it's my device. I just wanted to point out.
I think it's yours, Bharatbhai.
Is it? Okay.
I can hear.
All right. Sorry. I mean, I think we are talking about two different things here, Ajitbhai.
Yeah.
When we talk about, an organ being removed from a body, and the soul lives on, but it is important to remember that the soul is in every part of the body except the hair and the nails. I mean, the outer nails and the hair. But here we are talking about two different things. One is Pudgal, the other is if you remove the Pudgal part, I mean the soul part of it, the soul is still going to be vyapak in the body. It's not going to affect the soul in any way. To the second part of the question, where you say you're right that saying that we in our body there are lots of microorganisms. I mean they are souls on their own.
Absolutely.
And that is a complete different. I mean that is like a tree and a leaf and a fruit. I mean, the main soul is a tree, and yet all the leaves and the fruits are also living there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
now, thank you very much for clarifying, Bijal. I hope that understands. But just to expand a bit further on what Bharatbhai has just said, if a kidney is removed from a donor, it is a functioning piece of matter. As long as it is within the body of the donor, it is the donor's soul's ability to create that body, feed it, maintain it, that has existed and supported it so far. The moment it is separated from the donor's body, okay, it is no longer a living matter, but it is matter, which is then utilized by the recipient of that donated kidney and incorporated into its own body. So, as Bharatbhai is clarifying, these are two different things. One is matter, the other is the soul. So, if our concept is that we are transferring life or part of a particular life into another body, then that is wrong. We are transferring a piece of matter from one
But the
body. Yeah.
matter is alive, though, isn't it?
It was alive in that other life, but the moment you separate it from that body, it has lost all its connection to that, but it is still functioning matter, which can then be utilized. So, for example, I've eaten a few chapatis today, and whatever else I've consumed, my body's digestive system has incorporated all that matter into creating and feeding all the various functions and maybe growing some part of me. So all the excess food that I've eaten, it has made it possible for that extra carbohydrates to be stored in my liver as some matter, and whatever else it's converted it into fat, which it has deposited. And there are the functions of the body. So I have consumed food which was part of somebody else's life. So I've consumed wheat, rice, shark, salad. All those were bodies of life forms. So while I
Yeah.
consume, yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
my only it's just that the food is fine and it's gone into your system, but here this organ, although it's just matter, it still has an ability to function even though it's been moved somewhere else. There's memories as well, where I've heard, the cell memories or being able to regenerate, or people remembering things when they've had transplants or whatever. So it feels like there's a bit more to it than that. It might not have a separate soul, I don't know, and maybe there's more research to be done to understand it further from a Jain perspective. But to me, it feels like it's more than just a Pudgal, which is a non-living thing.
hold on
But
to the.
we can continue this at some other time. I don't want to take
I think
more time.
I'm
Bharatbhai,
sorry, I don't think we are dealing here with two different things, and any part of the body or the body itself, is Pudgal.
is
The
Pudgal.
body is not, sentience is only the soul has sentience. What we say, upyog, darshan and gnan, only the soul has that. No other part, nothing else besides that has that sentience.
I get
If
that, but then how does it have the energy to work even without the soul?
energy to work is, is as we have seen in the 10 brands, that is the way the body and the soul, they are joint, they are linked together, with the prana. So if it's removed from one body and goes into any other body, as you say, during transplants, it's just that Pudgal is removed from one body, which is functioning in that body, and goes into another body, and is going to function there. There is no sentience in that Pudgal. None whatsoever. There's no sentience in any part of the body whatsoever. Upyog means only darshan and gnan. And that is sentience, which upyog means active consciousness.
Yeah.
Okay,
Is that
thank you.
clearer, Vijay?
I will take it offline.
સર આમ
Okay.
કદાચ એટલે એવું હશે કે લાઈક એનામાં જે સ્ટોર્ડ એનર્જી છે જે એટલો સમય માટે વાપરે છે એટલે જ આપણે કહીએ છીએ ને કે ઓર્ગન ટ્રાન્સપ્લાન્ટ આટલા દિવસમાં કે આટલા અવર્સમાં થવું જોઈએ સો મે બી ઇઝ ધેર સ્પેન ઓફ લાઈફ કે એટલું જતું હશે એમ
પણ એની પૂતગલની પ્રોપર્ટી છે એટલા દિવસ પછી એ બગડી જાય જેમ હવે 3 દિવસ સુધી શાક કે કઈ રાખ્યું હોય એ બગડી જાય એના જેવો જ કોન્સેપ્ટ છે આ ઇટ્સ અ પ્રોપર્ટી ઓફ ધ મેટર જે પૂતગલ છે જે મટીરિયલ છે એ થોડા દિવસ પડ્યું રહે તો એ બગડી જાય અને વપરાય નહીં એ કામ નહીં કરે એટલે એટલો વખતની અંદર એ ટ્રાન્સપ્લાન્ટ થવું જોઈએ ઇટ્સ એક્ઝેક્ટલી ધ સેમ થિંગ આપણે ખાવાનું ખાઈએ કે કિડની આપીએ
હા એટલે એમ જ કહું છું કે કદાચ એવું હશે એટલે ઇટ વિલ બી ફંક્શનિંગ એમ
પણ that doesn't necessarily mean કે it is bad because it had life and the life has gone, that's why it won't function. It's two different things there.
ઓકે
Nick? Nick, you need to unmute. You got your hand raised. Sorry. Nick, are you there? Okay, Hasmukh Bhai? Oh, Nick has unmuted himself. Okay,
Right.
go on, Nick.
Okay. If you think of a computer or any gadget, for instance, when we switch it off, it still runs for a few seconds afterwards before it actually loses power. In the same way, an organ has the power from the existing soul. Although it's separated from the soul, the power is still there for a few seconds or minutes, whatever it is, I don't know. But if we don't utilize it within, the connection isn't made again, then it goes.
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. Yeah. But then I think what Bijal's question might then be is that the connection with what? So as the
So when we say connection, is like we've rightly said that we need to do a transplant within a certain amount of time. If we don't do the transplant within certain time, that particular organ ceases to function.
Yeah. Okay. Hasmukh Bhai, you had a comment?
Right. This is totally different.
Yeah, please.
Right. Huge learning for me here. Jeev, it's made a lot of impact and it's kind of putting a lot of things in perspective now. Because we talk of dharma and we talk of lots of things. But I think this is fundamental because, I think the learning for me is microorganism and a human being, same value in life. Both of them have to be revered equally, a human being and a microorganism. Now, in our daily lives, we never think about microorganisms or lower forms of lives. We just, we think that the Manushas are the ultimate and we have goals and achievements and we talk about moksha. But those little microorganisms, they have the potential for moksha as well.
Absolutely.
So the learning here is really, first of all, for me, is to value what I have. Because I'm in a much better place than the microorganisms. And it's now also teaching me to respect all those forms of lives, because basically they have the same potential. I'm in a better stage. If I don't respect that, if I kind of abuse my state in life now, that's where I'm going to end up at some point. So basically, this is really explaining the fundamentals of Jainism. So as you said at the start, that Jiv is the essence, the backbone. And for me, it gives a true understanding of Jainism. And ultimately, it's not just the understanding, it's the conduct. So obviously, if I understand it enough, I can then start thinking about conduct and my practices as well.
Absolutely. Very well said, Hasmukhbhai. And that is what we're trying to get across, that ultimately it is all about who we are essentially, and our identification with everything that is not of us. So we identify ourselves with that which is material, that which is temporary, that which is destructible, that which is full of all kinds of, that those connections actually make us lose our true self. So by nature, the soul has reverence for all life. So it is completely full of prem for all life and understanding. It has total omniscience, total knowledge. It has got total power, and all life has that potential. And when we begin to understand our true nature and learn to distinguish and separate ourselves from all that is happening to the soul when it is occupying a body, and the identification with the body, the mind, then our spiritual progress starts. So when we begin to separate, we become what is called gnata drashta, meaning we know and we see. That's all we are doing. And we stop doing what is called karta bhokta, meaning I am doing something and I am enjoying something, or I am suffering something. The soul in its pure form, if it becomes an observer of everything that is going on around it without getting entangled in any kind of reaction or emotional attachment, then that is the mark of the beginning of true progress. And that is where the potential of every soul, in whichever particular life form it is at the moment, that is the power of every soul. And we've all been in the past in all kinds of single-sensed microorganisms or single-sensed life forms. And there is no guarantee, as you just reminded us, Hasmukhbhai, that we won't go back into that again. So value what we've got and move on from here to higher places. And that is what we are trying to do. And that is what Jainism is trying to teach us. Sorry, I just wanted to complete that. Hasmukhbhai, you had unmuted yourself. Please.
No, Ajitbhai, really, you've really hit the nail, and it kind of makes sense. And as you were talking, I was visualizing things like ice and snow and all that, and I could actually see that all those things have life. But do we ever stop to ever think? You know, if it's a human one, we feel sorry, or if it's animals or bigger things, but these tiny things, we never even give it a second thought. And by you teaching this, it's brought so many things to light.
Great.
What I wanted to ask was, last time you'd said that you would tell us a bit more about Nigoth, because I am still very interest in, I mean, the Veva Rasi and Aveva Rasi. And what I understood was that once we come out of Nigod, we will not go back ever there. So the starting of life is Nigod. And it's only when we are very, 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 very lucky that we will come out. And that's when the journey starts. So could we fall down to such a low level that we might end up back in Nigod ever?
Yes, I think as we explained last time, once we have left the Vyavhar Rasi, meaning Vyavhar means circulation. So we all start in that uncirculatory or non-circulatory part of Nigod until one soul goes to moksha, and then just merely as a matter of chance, our soul would have escaped. So that was the first biggest lottery that we would have ever won. And we get into circulation. So we enter the Vyavhar Rasi, and then we go on into higher forms from there. But if we end up with accumulating all kinds of bad karmas in higher life forms, then we can go back down as far as Nigod, but we would still remain in the Vyavhar Rasi. So it is easier to get out. It is not subject to another soul going to moksha to get released from that part of Nigod. So we are still in circulation. We have not lost the ability to remain in circulation. And in terms of how long our journey from Nigod to Nirvana, meaning from Nigod to moksha, is some exceptional, extremely lucky souls. And there is just one example which I'm sure most of you may have heard of or know. Bhagwan Rushabdev's mother, Mata Marudeva, after getting released from Nigod, she had one life form as a tree, as a plant, as a tree. And in that life, she calmly suffered all kinds of difficulties that trees suffer from the other elements and other neighboring trees or whatever. And having suffered that, her next life was that of a human being as the mother of Bhagwan Rushabdev. And in that life, on spending a long time crying over what would be happening to her son Rushabdev after he had become a monk, and moving from place to place, as we all know, Bhagwan Rushabdev spent almost 13 months without being able to be given food, Viksha, that he could actually eat. He was given all kinds of things, but people didn't understand what a gochari, what a monk could eat and accept. So nobody found out until his grandson, Shreyansh Kumar, remembered his past life and understood what monks could eat and not, and served him after almost 13 months with lots of sugarcane juice, which was just ready there, and he offered it, and Bhagwan Rushabdev obviously knew that that was acceptable, and he accepted that and broke his fast. And then sometime later he achieved Keval Gnan, but Mata Marudeva, his mother, had spent her many days, a long time, crying so much that her eyes had actually dimmed, and she had almost lost the clarity of her sight. And when Bharat Chakravarti, her grandson, Bhagwan Rushabdev's son, comes to her and says, "You've been crying for your son, Bharat. Let me take you to see that he is in no difficulties. Look at what he's actually got now and how grand his current condition is. He was basically describing the fact that the Devs had created a samvasaran for him and that he was there in all his everything that the Devs had created for him. And Bhagwan Rushabdev is sitting in the samvasaran. Bharat Chakravarti takes Marudeva Mata sitting on an elephant to view him, and she sees him at a distance. And she says, I've been crying for a year about my son. And look at him. He is in such a grand state that this attachment that I've had to my son, so she loses all her rag, all her moh, and within a short time, while riding towards Bhagwan Rushabdev, she achieves Keval Gnan. And that was the example of the shortest journey from Nigod to Keval Gnan and Nirvana, obviously, at the end of that life. And that is an extreme exception. None of us are ever going to get anywhere near that.
That's really good Swadhyaya stuff and something to reflect on and contemplate. That's really good. It raises a question for me, this particular story. Normally we talk about 84 lakh Fera, 8.4 million lives. So from listening to this, it's not that everybody goes through it's potentially 8.4, but not everybody goes through 8.4.
What that signifies is that potential places that we can be born in. So potential 84 lakh jiva yoni. That doesn't mean that that is the number of lives that we got. The number of lives will be infinite. We could be born in one sense life form many times, two sense life form many times. And even after achieving a state of enlightenment, which is called Samyak Tva, for the first time, our future journey to moksha would be extremely limited, but even that extremely limited type span can be as long as Ardha Pudgal Paravartan card, which could be a Sankhya or a huge number of choices. It could be a lot of Kal Chakras. So that length of the journey could be extremely long. So there is 84 lakh is the number of Jiva Yoni. It doesn't actually mean that the number of life cycles that we are going to spend is going to be 84 lakh. I'm sure all of us here have probably spent millions and millions. I don't think we could actually use a figure because millions is a number. We are talking about Anant. We are talking about infinite number of life forms, life spans that we've spent in the past.
Thank you for that. That explains it quite nicely, because I was under the illusion that we all have 8.4 million lives, but it's types of lives. It's potentially types of lives.
It's types of life.
Yeah. Okay.
We'd be extremely lucky if we only had 8.4 million lives. I'm sure I've had infinite times more than that, or billion times more. I mean, a billion seems to be a too small a number. Okay. On that positive note, shall we end today?
એક ચાર બે વસ્તુ એડ કરી શકું?
Please.
ખાલી એક કેવું હતું કે જેમ નિકભાઈ કીધું ને કે હવે એમનો માઇક્રો ઓર્ગેનિઝમ તરફ જોવાનો લાઈક વ્યૂ બદલાઈ ગયો કરીને કે બધામાં જીવ છે. આપણે એ જ વિચાર કરીને કરવાનું છે કે દરેક આત્માને સિદ્ધ અને અર્યંત બનવાના જ છે. તો કોઈ બી આત્મા આપણી બાજુમાં હશે, ફ્યુચરના સિદ્ધ કે અર્યંત જ હશે. એટલે આપણને કીધું છે કે દરેક જીવમાં ભગવાનને આપણે જોઈએ છે કરીને. સો એવી રીતે આપણે રિસ્પેક્ટ આપવાનું છે, એવી રીતે વર્તવાનું છે. અને સેકન્ડ થિંગ કે જે એમણે કીધું ને અવ્યવહાર રાશિ ને વ્યવહાર રાશિનું, એનું એમને એક્ઝામ્પલ આપ્યું હતું સ્નેક એન્ડ લેડરની ગેમ. કે અવ્યવહાર રાશિમાં જયારે વન્સ યુ આર સ્ટાર્ટ, એકવાર ઘરમાંથી બહાર નીકળ્યા પછી વ્યવહાર રાશિમાં કેમ અપ એન્ડ ડાઉન ઓલા સ્નેક એન્ડ લેડરમાં થાય છે એવી રીતે આપણે અપ એન્ડ ડાઉન થયા કરતા હોય છે એમ.
On
So
that point,
example.
yeah, thank you very much, Jayashree. And just reminds me that there is a Jain snake and ladder. The first one was created a few hundred years ago, and there is an example of the one old painting of a snake and ladder in a library near Ahmedabad. I don't remember the place, but we've seen that snake and ladder, and there are versions of it now that are available. So that's good. But basically, the potential divinity of all life is something that Sanatan Dharma, the origins of which are from the Saddharma prescribed by our Tirthankar Paramatmas, also talks about the potential, the divinity of all life. And there are lots of stories of how animals actually connect to us. And with this age of WhatsApp videos, there are many examples of how different animals have connected. And there are examples of, say, cows which visit certain family members on a regular basis. There's an example of a leopard or a cheetah or a family of them coming every night to sleep with a caretaker in some jungle. They come and snuggle next to him all the time. There are examples of monkeys who have come and attended vyakhyans from or spent time. So there are all kinds of examples that you might see, and these are all indicative of the connection from previous births that animals have. So there are lots of current stories that we have become more aware of, and our sastras are full of stories with respect to animals. So if you, even within Bhagwan Mahavir's life, there is a story of a frog and his previous life, and what happens to him during Bhagwan Mahavir's. There is a story of a horse in who I think it was Munisuvrat Swami Bhagwan, if I'm not mistaken, Bharat Bhai, who went and traveled so far to actually knowing that the time was right for that horse's soul to start progressing spiritually. He travels a long distance to connect with that horse. What is Munisuvrat Swami Bhagwan, Bharat Bhai, or was it some other Tirthankar?
I believe it was Munisur. I'm not 100% sure, but there is a story to that effect.
And
He
then
goes and gives both to that horse.
yeah. And if, I mean, I don't know if any one of you hoard old books, but there is a particular series called Jivan Mani Sadmachan Mara Trust, which was producing small booklets. And there is a whole series written by Jai Bhikkhu, who was the father of the great man. He was a great person himself, but he was the father of Dr. Kumar Desai, who we may have all heard of, who is also an extremely good writer. And he, I think, leads the Institute of Jainology from India. He had written a series of Jain Dharmani Prani Vartao. And there is a series of about 16, 17 books, about 10, 15, 20 pages about all the animals that animal stories in Jain texts. So there are lots of stories about animals and their spiritual progress in Jainism. And those were extremely good stories for children to learn about Jainism from. So if you have got some old enthusiasts in their 80s, 90s who are hoarding old books, find them. They may be, you might actually come across this series, Jivan Mani Sad Vachan Mala Trust, Jain Dharmani Prani Vartao. I've lost my collection. I don't know where it is now. Okay. All right. जिन आज्ञा विरोध कहीं पण बोल्यो हो ते सभी हूँ मनोचन काय करे तस्मिच्छामि दुक्कडम. If I've said anything that is against the teachings of our great Tirthankar Paramatma as our Guru Bhagwans and our Dharma, I ask for forgiveness. Sarva Mangala Mangalyam Sara Kalyan Karanam Pradhanam Sarva Dharmanam Jainam Jaiti Sasanam. We'll see you all next week, and thank you all for your participation and interesting questions. We'll progress on to the next topic next week, and there what I'm going to be, I wanted to introduce that this week, but we haven't had time, are three concepts: Hey, Gney, and Upadey. Hey is out of these 9 tattvas, those that you want to leave, meaning you don't want to get engaged with, you want to discard. Gney, those elements that you want to learn about. And Upadey are those elements that you want to incorporate in your life and develop further. So we'll start off with those 3 basic concepts with respect to Nav Tatva next week. Okay.
Thank you, Ajitbhai.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Pranam
you.
Ajita, thank you.
Thank
Jai
you, Pranam.
Thank
Jinendra.
you.
Thank you.
Jai Jinendra.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Bharat Bhai, for your help.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.